All right, I guess we can go ahead and get started. I know we got a lot to talk about, so we'll give it as much time as we can. My name is John. I am the customer engagement manager here at WebGility. I help moderate and run some of these webinars here. I'll introduce the rest of our lovely panel today. For those of you who don't know, Parag Mamnani is our fearless leader here at WebGility, the CEO and founder of this company. We have Smarty from Smarty Marketing, and Danny Maloney from Tailwind. We're going to be talking about AI and its impact on our industry, the businesses that we run, and how we can leverage it and talk through some of the misconceptions. Really cover a whole lot today. If you want to get to the agenda, I can kind of perfect. So yeah, we'll start out with some of the fears, those misconceptions, some of the chatter that you hear about AI, and kind of tackle those. We like to call them myths because there's a lot of myth wrapped up in it. And then we'll move to how small businesses are leveraging AI, how they're using it in their business, how you can get going, how you can kind of get started in AI and leveraging it for your business, and then lead into the budget, the tools that are recommended, and then some predictions that the panel has for the future of AI, especially in the industry. So. Before we did dive in, I wanted to do a quick poll, just gauge the room, see where everybody's at on this AI conversation. So I'm going to launch this poll, and it's, are you using AI for your business now? Are you leveraging AI in any way for your business, big or small? It can be utilizing ChatGPT. It can be building something out specifically, like bespoke for your business. I'll just give it a couple seconds here to make sure people have had a chance to answer, but it's good for us to, see where everybody's at. We got about 75% participation here. Give it another couple seconds just to, again, make sure everybody has had a chance to answer.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see what everyone's doing.
Right now it's about 50-50. So, really interesting to see. And that honestly, whenever I run a poll, I feel like it's evenly spread across all answers. So, it means it's a good conversation to have.
Awesome. Well, for those of you that are already using AI, this will hopefully be some additional insights. And there it is.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it looks
Well,
like 52% yes, 48% no. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how people are leveraging that for sure. I'll stop sharing. And then real quick, just to set the expectations for the webinar, we do have a lot to get through. Feel free to ask questions in either the Q&A section on Zoom or in the chat panel as well. We'll try to answer them as we go along. Sometimes we might be in the middle of a conversation, though, so we will get to your question. If not in the moment, we will save it for the Q&A at the very end. So, any questions, feel free to let them fly in the chat.
and yeah, we are recording this webinar. So for those that signed up and want to look at it offline, or if you think you want to come back and refer to anything we discussed, recording will be available on our website and on our YouTube channel. Thanks a lot, John, for the intro. Hello again, everybody. My name is Parag Mamnani. I'm the founder CEO of WebGility. With me is Anne. She's with Smarty Marketing. She's the SEO guru on the call. For those of you that are selling online, I hope all of you are. You'll probably get a lot of great tips from Anne on how to optimize, what to do about SEO, how to manage Google, all the changes that are happening with search and the impact of AI on that. And Danny is a good friend and fellow founder of Tailwind, and they deliver marketing solutions for small to medium-sized businesses. And we've known each other for a while. He's also got some great SEO, I'm sorry, some AI tips for us, and his company has some AI solutions to offer. So I'm sure we'll learn a lot more about Tailwind. So welcome, Anne and Danny. Excited to talk with you today.
Likewise. Thanks for having us.
Awesome, awesome. So let's jump right in. We've got a lot to cover, like John said. So I want to first start off by talking about what are some of the common fears and misconceptions of AI. We all think about AI as this sort of weird robotic thing of the future that's going to predict things that are going to happen, and it has a crystal ball. And it seems like we're in a moment now, guys, where AI has really become real. And I think there's still some fear around it. And it's important maybe we talk about that. So, Anne, especially as from the SEO world, what are some of the fears, misconceptions you see from your clients, and how should sort of small businesses be thinking about some of these misconceptions? How do we overcome these?
Well, we will see how to overcome this, but all the fears in our industry are pretty well grounded because we don't know where it's going. We don't know how people are going to be discovering brands, products, answering their questions with all the AI and generative AI going on. So what we are afraid of, and our clients also, is that we will not know how people find answers and brands, because generative AI is very dynamic. What they answer to our clients or to clients of our clients, we will not know. At least we don't know now. So we are hoping there will be solutions, there will be analytical ways to understand those customer journeys around the web, how people are going to search going forward. This will not happen quickly because all those searching habits are really very not take time to change, but that's the future. Somehow people searching will change because people are getting used to getting quick answers. They are getting used to asking by prompts instead of search queries. So those are the biggest fears for us, and unfortunately we don't know the answers yet because we don't know what it's going to look like and how well adopted and how fast adopted all those new habits are going to be. So we are here, we are watching, we are on the trying to be up to date with everything that's changing, how Google is changing based on those searching behaviors as well. And at some point, I'm confident we will find all the answers, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to search, there's definitely still a little bit of misconception, a little bit of fear out there about how really search evolves and how businesses should be thinking about search. I know there's definitely been a lot of focus around content, and historically, search strategies have evolved around, really having a lot of keyword density and lots of relevant terms. But now, if you're going to replace, keywords with an AI assistant or say Gemini on Google, how do businesses actually position themselves? To your point, it's the early innings, and I'm seeing a lot of actually movement from Google. I'm sure we'll get into that in the next few slides here, but there's definitely a lot of change in the algorithms around search. But Danny, as we think about small businesses selling online, I think cost, kind of complexity, whether it really is beneficial. Like there are definitely a lot of open questions and fears around how to really engage with AI. And I think, your company's already kind of solved some of these with some AI solutions you offer. So tell us a little bit about what you think some of these fears are from your standpoint, and specifically around marketing technologies. What are the misconceptions, and how can these small businesses owners really overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, I think very valid question. Personally, I think when I look at these fears, it's a natural part of new technology adoption, right? We can look back at prior technology cycles, whether it was the coming of the internet itself, or interesting historical examples with the creation of automobiles or advancements in garment creation and processing, right? And it's very common for new technology to be met with fears, with questions, because realistically, there's a learning period. And that's where we're at with AI. We're in that early adoption period. The way that I think about it is, in order to get through that early adoption period and get to the point where we are seeing more mass market, true mass market adoption over time, it really comes down to killer apps and figuring out what those are going to be. And so that's how we're thinking about it a lot in the context of helping small businesses leverage AI responsibly and positively in their digital marketing efforts. Is what are those killer apps that give people superpowers they didn't have, that enable them to accomplish something that they otherwise would not do, that enable them to do something at higher quality than what they would natively be able to do on their own or with the team and resources they currently have, and then making it super affordable, right? I think realistically, a few years ago, we were in a space where you could say AI was simply too expensive for small businesses because everything was custom built and it was these huge, massive consulting projects. that has really broken down quickly to the point where now you have a lot of SaaS offerings or software offerings emerging in all different elements of applying AI to existing business models. And that's bringing down the cost massively because the cost of development is shared across a lot of customers, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the things you just pointed out in terms of where we are in the technology curve here, AI has been around for a long time.
true.
We've had this technology for a while, but I think it's sort of really captured the world's imagination since the launch of ChatGPT in 2022, late 22. And to your exact point, with that solution, what's happened is now it's become very accessible. You're not thinking about AI as this real complex large language model that you need to write a lot of code against. You now have an AI assistant, right? You have ChatGPT. And now with the large language models being driven by a lot of these large players, it's become so much more accessible both behind the scenes, the cost of the technology has gone down, but now the interfaces that most businesses have to interact with this technology, now that, uh, of course, there's almost like an arms race happening with the enterprises, with Meta and Google, kind of OpenAI, all of them competing to capture the lion's share of the market. But the beauty is that all of this complexity is now really hidden behind the scenes for most business owners. They can now get much easier, simpler, cleaner interfaces to work with. And the technology, to your point, is just more accessible. And I think, one of the misconceptions is also around that it can only do simple things, right? Everyone's kind of really just familiar maybe with the basics of a chat GPT, where you can replace what would be an originally a search with maybe a question. So I think it's important to call out that it's not just the transformation of the interface from like searching to asking questions, but it's really there's a power behind it. And I think, Denny, in your business, especially with Tailwind, I think you're actually providing some of that power from the marketing perspective as well, in terms of writing and kind of description. Maybe talk to us a little bit about how you're really leveraging some of this technology, because it sounds like you've really put it to work already.
Yeah, and I think of it as, yeah, accessibility is step one, usefulness is step two, and then value, maximization is step three. I think we're shifting into that usefulness phase. And what I mean by that is, you're right, ChatGPT made leveraging AI for generative text, especially uh, much more accessible. The challenge a lot of people run into is, how do I actually incorporate this into processes for my business in a way that makes sense for my workflow? And also, how do I solve some of the issues and usefulness, like hallucinations and incorrect information coming back, because I don't want to be publishing bad information or bad content? And so there's a number of ways that we've been working towards addressing those questions. One, I'd say, is building simple workflows where some of those checks are actually built in behind the scenes in order to increase quality, and even comparing the outputs of multiple models against each other to see which models perform best in specific scenarios. So you're not reliant on a single model for every task that you do. And so, an example of that is, we have a workflow that's called, idea to article. And you can basically start with a simple idea, and it's, this is what I want to write about. It's going to help you brainstorm different approaches to covering that idea. So what are different takes or angles? You pick the ones you like. It'll help you then work through outlines. You can tweak the outlines. And then you finally get to, now let's draft an initial version of the text, which you can then work from. And you've gone from, blank page and writer's block to, I have something to mold and craft into a finished product in about 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I've gone through iterations of that, right? So that's where I think putting those workflows around the technology is what's beginning to make it truly useful. And that's where we're seeing a really strong response, where people are like, oh yeah, that's totally different than just interacting with a chatbot.
Yeah, and ultimately, I would say it's less about, having fear, to your point. It's about really how do you put that technology to work? And one of the biggest fears I often hear about is data, right? Like, is my data going to be secure? Am I going to be losing control? And I think it's really important to realize that all the information that's publicly out there on the web, it's already being crawled, and ChatGPT and all the other large language models are already crawling the web, grabbing publicly available information. In fact, many of them have even licensed private information from a lot of these large providers to train their large language models. But your own individual business data is private. You certainly want to be very thoughtful if you think about leveraging any kind of a tool of uploading all of your data. You want to make sure that whatever tool you're using is going to keep your information private and not share it with the open, the large language model company that you might be using. So it's important to have kind of those rules established, but there is a choice here now. It isn't about take all my data and then give me some, generate content for me. You can kind of create that walled garden for yourself. I want to kind of really jump a little bit into kind of what's happening with a lot of these large enterprises and what's really happening in our space. But I think it's really important to call out that some of the misconceptions and to your point, some of these fears are well-founded. It is a little bit of the wild, wild west right now with a lot of solutions out there, which is why it's really important to work with a trusted authority, work with a trusted company and set of tools so you know your data is secure. And it's important to realize that we are at the time where this technology is very accessible, it's very powerful, and you can absolutely put it to work in your small business. And we're going to talk a lot more about that in the next few slides. But as we look at the overall space, AI has had a massive impact on e-commerce. And we talked a little bit about generative AI. I want to maybe ground everyone in the audience as well. Generative is not some crazy creative term. It doesn't have to be very obscure. I think of generative very simply. It's generating something new. So when you think about AI, it's about leveraging all of the large data sets that you have. The AI technology needs to then train or learn from that data. And then it makes inferences, as in, I learned this from this information. What can I infer from it? And it also then can create new content, which is then called generative content. And Danny, you used the word hallucination. Again, just for simplicity, hallucination is really it going off track a little bit, right? So it should have inferred something and it inferred something else because it didn't either have all of the data or it didn't infer accurately based on the past, what was going to happen in the future or what the content needed to be. And anytime it goes kind of off track, that's referred to as a hallucination. And for simplicity's sakes, I'd say a lot of the large language models for very definitive sets of data have practically very little to no hallucination. But when you start to get into subjective data and content writing, I mean, we've all maybe heard of some of the controversies, especially, and you're probably familiar with search, right? You're searching for the initial launch of Bard by Google was bringing up all kinds of wonky searches because just, it was hallucinating. It was not able to predict the future. But there's definitely been a big impact on search. Danny's point, there's been tons of innovation, I think, around generating new content. I wonder, Anne, when you talk to a lot of your clients, especially as they're thinking about their e-commerce business, how they should adjust maybe their search engine optimization strategies or what they should do differently. I know you mentioned a lot still changing. Are there some tips, some recommendations you have for businesses now as they think about how to better optimize and better be found on search?
Well, fundamentally, the SEO fundamentals are making your site accessible to crawlers, all kinds of them, including now AI crawlers, and creating content or pages that, according to search intent, satisfy those people who are asking those questions or using those queries to search. So fundamentally, nothing is changing in SEO with that regard because those two are still key for findability. I think the focus is a little bit different these days. Branding is more important, even more important. It was always a huge signal for Google. But now when AI is using a database of known entities and build all those associations around them, being a well-defined brand, even in a little niche, it's still important. Like SEO is pretty little niche, and being known there as top something or expert in something is very important for findability these days. I think even small businesses, they don't have to be global brands, but being talked about, because that's what AI is going to use, what we are talking, what the audience is talking about, and being talked about online, on social media, on forums, all around the web is very important, and becoming part of that conversation is also very important. So brand building and reputation management, those were not as much part of SEO strategy previously, because you could still rank because of backlinks, keywords on your site. And now being talked about and being known, at least in this little area or in this little niche, and having narrow expertise or having narrow niche is getting more important. So the focus is shifting to that in a big way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I guess there's definitely been over these past decade just the evolution of content from being just keyword dense and not actually knowing what you had on the page. As long as you stuffed the page with lots of keywords, the engine would find you and rank you. But now it's getting smarter, right? It's really able to understand the value of
Also,
your brand.
interestingly enough, being known as an expert is also getting more important, because Google realizes that with all the generative AI and generated content, finding firsthand experience and real experts will be users' first priority, because they will be flooded with repurposed content with no real expertise behind it. So being an expert and being known as an expert, or being a trusted brand and being known as a trusted brand, are two biggest things we need to focus on for SEO, for organic search visibility, because surfacing something real, that's why Google is all about Reddit these days, because those are real people talking about real things they had experience with. They used those products, they had experience with those brands. So highlighting that in search in many ways, that's why it's going all crazy about ranking Reddit these days, because they need that firsthand content from real people talking about real things.
Yeah,
So
yeah. In fact, it's maybe not AI specific, but it's really relevant for everybody on the attending and watching this webinar. If there was ever a time that you needed to focus on your brand, your uniqueness, your community, your authority on your subject, now's the time. I actually got asked this on a couple of podcasts last week about, what should small businesses do in this crowded market? And we're seeing obviously AI is having that impact, but the more relevant your copy is. I mean, there used to be a time you could just, keyword stuff your pages, your product descriptions could be simple and just keyword rich and you're okay. But now it's about bringing both the social element, it's about bringing video, it's about bringing community. And to your point, this is going to become more and more important as the search algorithms evolve. And Danny, in your business, I've seen obviously with the tools you're providing for marketers to get more visibility on social channels, there's definitely been a lot of impact on just content being created and AI assistance. I'm certainly going to talk a little bit about Webgility's assistant, but would love to hear how are small businesses able to put some of this content to work in getting their e-commerce businesses moving and getting those descriptions and product details to be more rich.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I can talk to some of what we're already doing, what's possible today, and then maybe some things on the horizon. But one of the things we've seen historically for small businesses is it's really hard to keep up with creating and publishing content regularly, even with the best of intentions. Even if you put it on your calendar every week, something comes up, right? Something disrupts that flow of really staying present. And then on top of that, often people want to be active and present on more channels than they are today, but you just kind of run out of hours in the week, right? And it's the thing that falls off very easily. And so that's one of the early problems we focused in on solving, is making sure you always have content drafted and ready to go, and it shifts the business owner or the marketing team into the mode of being more of an editor-in-chief and less of I have to create everything from scratch. So an example of that, when someone comes to Tailwind and they sync, let's say their e-commerce store, could be Shopify, WooCommerce, Squarespace, whatever platform. We immediately we ingest the details of their catalog, their products. We go out to the web, we create an agency type profile of their business. What do they do? What are people saying about them? What are their differentiators? Things like that. And then within a minute, we've already drafted, here's an initial set of social content for you, right? And it's taking all of those inputs in. And then from there, we learn based on how they interact with that content. What do they edit? How much do they edit it? What do they publish? What do they not publish? And where we're going to with that pretty soon is this becoming sort of like a weekly deliverable of just like, hey, we notify you when you have new draft content ready. You don't have to use all of it. I would say you should always review it because you want to make sure it's accurate, and you might see different spins you want to put on it or train the model on your voice specifically. But that's an example, I think, of where generative content can break down barriers for people to be more present and be more active than they would otherwise be without it. Some of the future looking stuff that I think is really interesting, even though it comes with its own, it's going to need regulation and has some of its own ethical questions and so forth. One of the things we're playing around with right now is how do you create realistic new art and photography, essentially taking product photos, putting it into real life situations, and it doesn't cost you $3,000 to set up a custom photo shoot and 3 weeks of time to set it up and then shoot it and then get the content back and edit it, but you can actually do this within minutes, right? And the pace of development of that technology in the last 2 years has been astronomical. The quality is getting so much better, so much more lifelike, so much more realistic, to the point where I actually think it's important for people to indicate this is AI generated or these are AI models, right? From an ethical perspective. But that's sort of a next type of application we're looking at, because something we hear, especially from our e-commerce customers, is it's really hard to get good product photography. And depending on what their supply chain looks like, it could be really expensive if they have to actually physically get the product in hand in order to create these photography generation cycles, right?
Yeah, and it's fascinating. You've brought up everything from, generating new blog articles and content to product descriptions to now even product photography. So really the application of AI is really ubiquitous, right? You can apply it all of these places. I do wonder here, and as I think, maybe we're getting into predictions a little bit, but boy, the technology is becoming both accessible, it's becoming inexpensive. I know we're talking about AI and lots of, large language models, etc. But when you think about it as a small business owner, these are tools that are very easy to access, very easy to use. They are becoming more ubiquitous. They're becoming better and better. As you think about like over time, Danny, if everybody's got the same tools, everybody's generating the same content, maybe we're coming back to the question of that uniqueness is still going to be that creative element of the business owner, the brand, that's going to really help them stand out.
I think that's right. And just like Anne said, brand is going to be incredibly important. Product is going to be important. Are you ultimately delivering a good product? And when you do, are people saying good things about you when they talk about you? Or are they saying bad things when they talk about you? Or not talking about you at all because you're frankly irrelevant, right? And not providing a great experience. That's going to become the differentiator in my mind. For a lot of our customers, that's where they want to spend their time anyway, right? They want to spend their time better understanding their customers' needs, better thinking of products to satisfy those needs, figuring out how to improve the quality of their products over time, how to develop that brand. They don't want to spend the time on the repetitive, redundant tasks in getting content created.
You've given me the perfect segue. You've given me the perfect segue. Those are the repetitive, redundant tasks that I think, when we think about data and analytics, we think about AI assistants. It's what can you actually not just tell me about what's happening, but Webgility, sort of my viewpoint's always been it's not just about accessing information. It's really about performing actions. Truly, an AI assistant needs to be able to do things for me, right? And so, with our launch of Webgility's AI assistant, we're now able to help the business owner actually perform actions like sync my data, right? Push all my orders to QuickBooks, update my inventory. These are the actions that, users take minutes, sometimes hours to kind of go through different screens to act on. And now they can just talk to the assistant and ask it to perform. It's also being used. I know most business owners on this podcast or this webinar are really not software developers, but as a software company, and as you think about both, not just us as a small business, but even large companies, they're all putting AI even to work in software development. They are now coding assistants, co-pilots as they're called, that both Microsoft and several other platforms provide that can help you assist in actually generating code. So really software development as a category is being transformed. And, we pulled a stat here from McKinsey, 65% of organizations are now actually using generative AI, and this is doubling. So again, I wanted to kind of really emphasize it's here. AI is here. It's being used. It's accessible. It's, it's the early innings. Not a, lots going to change, but ultimately it's accessible and available for most business owners to use. I think it would be really helpful to maybe dive in then on specifically, how should e-commerce businesses think about AI? And I just want to lay the foundation here. This is how I've personally looked at it for Webgility. I'd love to get your take on it as well. But I think of AI kind of in two key segments. I think about how to employ AI in our internal operations. So, what are the tools, the technologies that we can put to work to really help our team? And number two, as a software company, what are the tools and technologies we can employ to actually help our customers? And those are two different things. And, it's important to really differentiate those two. Danny, is that something that you've thought about both for your business as well? How did you kind of go about approaching it? What are maybe some ways that you think, businesses can get started thinking about putting AI to work for them?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we're looking at it through both of these lenses, and the internal operations side really can't be overlooked. One example of that I think has been one of our more aggressive approaches here is on customer support. We actually now are utilizing a chatbot type functionality as a first line of defense. And it was a little bit touch and go at first, honestly. Like there were some weird conversations and infinite loops that happened in some conversations and stuff like that. But a month or two in, it started getting really smart. And it's gotten to the point now where I believe we're satisfying about 2/3 of customers' questions instantly. And we're maintaining a 100% customer satisfaction rating. So like, those little surveys where it's like, how happy were you with this conversation? I just looked at it. Last 7 days, 100% satisfied.
Wow, that's impressive.
And so what we think of as being really nice about this, even though I know people, we often individually think like, I don't want to talk to a machine, right? What's interesting is if you can get someone the question they're looking for, or the answer to the question that they're looking for right away, that ends up being a very positive experience, right? What you have to watch out for, and where we still have human team members review every single conversation, no matter what, even the ones that were positively resolved, because we want to look for where did it go wrong? Let's try to make that a better experience. Let's jump in. Or even if it went well, can we provide additional information and additional support beyond the answer that was given, which might have been adequate, but there's an opportunity here to educate the customer further, right?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of value in thinking about solutions for your own internal employees. And I imagine you're not just thinking about AI from the perspective of search and how to empower your customers and your clients, but are you using AI tools yourself? Is it helping you in your internal operations? And is that a good way to think about it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
We are a very small creative team, but even on us, like we are not massively using AI internally, but our case illustrates how easy it is for businesses, for smallest businesses to use AI to make them more productive. We use Google Workspace and it has Gemini integrated. So all the transcripts from videos, all the chat transcripts, all of them are AI, like summaries, takeaways, action items. You can ask Gemini to generate action items from any meeting with the client, or send reminders to the clients, or create a reminder, or write an email. So all of that is very very well integrated in Workspace these days. So our our adoption of AI in our internal operations happened very, very easy, and we are now using it, and it is making our lives much more productive for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And, I can speak for Webgility. We've definitely employed AI internally for our business. So first and foremost, to your point, Anne, all of our meetings, right? We now have an automatic note taker. Lots of different tools out there. I know we'll jump into tools here in a second, but lots of great tools to take notes, even for your one-on-ones that can help you capture action items. Our interviews, we now are able to use note taking so the interview panel can go back and refer to them in our recruiting process. We also are looking at support. Certainly, we've explored kind of our support database and looking at how we can get those questions answered for our customers in maybe the first pass very quickly. I've also looked at, I'm personally a user of ChatGPT. It's just fascinating. Something as simple as, well, maybe it's not simple. People probably don't do this very often, but I geek out on looking at quarterly earnings reports. So, I'll pull up an earnings report and literally you can kind of just paste it in and ChatGPT will kind of summarize and give you some, critical insights on it. So there's just a lot of different ways you could put it to work internally. But as you're thinking about your e-commerce business and your external users, I think one of the most common things I think Danny has talked about as well is really putting it to work in terms of your creative. So whether it's copy, and if you're using, say, Shopify or some of the other platforms out there, I know Shopify has launched its AI sidekick, which is really helpful for business owners to generate new content and creative. There's certainly a lot of new and creative ways you can surface an AI assistant to help customers find the right product if you have a large catalog, or engage with your customers. So there's definitely a lot of different ways in which you can think about the technology, but separating it in terms of internal operations and external, I think really helps you create some clarity on how do you approach it, and actually how do you actually go about implementing. So maybe let's jump in now to, if you've separated out your internal and external audiences, how do you actually get started? And I like to kind of um I was actually in a CEO forum, and we were kind of brainstorming. This was maybe a year ago. Like, how are we thinking about AI and how do we put it to test? And something that we all kind of agreed on was the best way, especially when you have a new technology, is find a stakeholder. Find there a small opportunity. Think about one area where you've kind of been thinking about automating. Figure out, how do you actually solve a small problem? Because often, say, how am I going to put it to work can become this real difficult. Like, you just can't get off the starting blocks because you've made the problem so big you don't know how to solve it. But if you find like small areas of opportunity and really define someone as a stakeholder, I mean, so I'll give you an example of Webgility. For our support team, we have identified one of our customer success leaders, and they've been tasked this next quarter with identifying the right AI assistant tool that's going to help us improve our support experience, and specifically, excuse me, around answering questions. But it's really about I think identifying opportunity, setting some, finding the right stakeholder. It's a lot of experimentation here as well. So, Danny, maybe you can talk a little bit about, as like you said, you've put your support agent to work, and you've also been in terms of your product solution with Tailwind offering to e-commerce businesses. I'm assuming you didn't get it right the first time, but how did you kind of go about putting AI to work in your business and building out that solution for your customers?
Yeah, I think two elements of this that I think were really important. One was we actually made it an open call to our team, and depending on the size of your business, that may or may not, be relevant. But different members of our team saw opportunities from their unique lens, right? So someone who focuses on security of data and web security, they're going to think about very different applications than someone on our marketing team, and they're going to think of different applications than someone on our customer support team or finance team, right? So stimulating that brainstorming across the team, seeing who leans in and really gets excited about it and wants to be part of, being those stakeholders, being some of those folks who drive experimentation. That was a really critical part of the process. And it also sent, I think, a positive cultural message around, the world is changing and evolving, and AI is going to continue driving a lot of change. Let's not be set in our ways of doing things the way we've always done them. If there might
So,
be,
Danny, I have a relevant question here. Did
Yeah.
they need to be a programmer?
Nope, no.
Yeah, I think it's really important for the audience to know you don't need to be a programmer to leverage AI.
Yeah. Well, and especially because of SaaS offerings that are emerging in different fields where, in some cases, we looked at the tools that were available a year ago and said, this isn't really good enough yet. We're not going to do it. Right. But then we look at it again this year and it's like, whoa, it's come a long way. Right. Maybe the second point that I throw out there, which I think was helpful for us and could be helpful in general on how you think about this, look for areas of pain, right? Things that are not going well today that are maybe happening, but not happening as well as you want them to happen. Those could be good places to start, right? Places where you do have a lot of redundant work and redundant tasks that people don't really enjoy doing, right? Try to start in those areas. I wouldn't generally attack this with whatever is your secret sauce or whatever is sort of the heart of your business model. But it can be lower risk that way, right? So, people are not perfect. AI is not perfect. But an interesting thing I've seen with the evolution of our content generation solutions over time, as quality improved, you increasingly cross the threshold where someone is more likely to say, wow, this is better than I can do myself, right? Or it's better than I can do myself most of the time. And then, that most of the time becomes more and more frequent. Crossing those thresholds, I think, is where you unlock value, because then, quality is increasing. It's not just cost saving. It's not right. That's not the mentality. Quality is increasing. You're getting more done. You're pushing further than you could otherwise. And that's what I think will make it stick for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of iteration. And I know you've been seeing the world of, SEO and search kind of evolve. Could you talk to us maybe a little bit about, maybe some of your early stabs at what, the Google search was going to do and maybe where it is today, maybe you might be recommending to clients? How's that iteration sort of adjusted from a search standpoint?
Well, from the search standpoint, like I said, we're still pretty much watching and learning what Google is trying to do, because Google looks like it is as lost as we are in terms of where it's all going. So they're frantically trying to push some experiments out there and then make them public before they are ready, like AI overviews. If you know those are AI generated answers to queries as you search. And we are trying to see what Google is thinking the future is going to be, because they are absolutely smarter than we are in that regard. They've been in the industry for 20 years, so they know where it's going. So we're learning from them for sure. And there are no clear answers yet, but I think that being the early adopter and watching what's happening is already a great advantage. And being able to know this has worked, this hasn't, this experiment was left behind. So the customers are not adopting it as well as Google thought they would. This is a great competitive advantage because you will be able to see where it's all going much faster and being able to adapt to that. And when it comes to practical applications of AI to search for small businesses, like we know Google, Meta, all of those have been using AI for a few years now to adapt their algorithm, to personalize it, to personalize search results, and everything they do, like Facebook feeds are all AI powered, and they have been for many years. Now that small businesses have access to that technology, I think the big thing there is to learn from that as well. Like ask ChatGPT or Gemini what are personas behind someone searching this, or what the search intent is. There's so much opportunity there to analyze search results from AI standpoint, because they are run by AI at these points, and we have to be able to reverse engineer it and see, hey, this is likely what Google would think about this search query, and this is what people need when searching this exactly. Are they on top? Do they know the topic well? Are they just at the beginning of their journey researching this topic? What kind of search, what kind of page should I create? Like, is it 101 page or some advanced guide or something like that? So there are many applications for AI in optimizing websites. And now you don't have an expert to have those answers. You can ask ChatGPT or Gemini for some input on everything, which is very time and money saving.
Yeah, in fact, speaking of money, certainly one of the big questions around AI is, what is the cost of implementation? And I think the way to maybe answer this is back to, are you thinking about AI for internal operations, or are you thinking about AI for your customers? And if you're thinking about it internally, the good news is there's definitely a lot of tools. For example, if you're on the Google stack, Gemini is currently included with the Google Workplace editions. A lot of this technology is being made available at very, very low cost today, just as these large companies are obviously trying to gain market share. And also, remember, your usage of those tools is helping give them more data, because ultimately data is what feeds this AI engine for it to train and learn what the behavior is and how you can evolve. But in terms of cost of implementing, solutions, say like WebGility, it's included as well. Our WebGility AI assistant is included in our packages, so it's available free today. We're certainly learning as well how customers are going to actually employ it. And over time, we'll learn and continue to make it more and more powerful. But should we be thinking, guys, about implementing AI as this, tens of thousands of dollars of investment? How should we kind of maybe frame the thinking around putting AI to work for us as a small business owner?
Yeah, if you're using out-of-the-box solutions or existing SaaS products, it shouldn't be anywhere near that expensive, right? I mean, we start at $15 a month, right? It doesn't need to be super expensive. And usually where I flip this question is I think, well, what's the cost of not implementing it and not trying it, right? If in our customer's case, it means you're not publishing as often, you're not present as often on the channels you want to be present, or you're putting out content that you feel is subpar quality, the cost actually shows up on the revenue side of missed opportunity cost for revenue generation.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you use AI poorly and end up creating a bunch of low quality spammy content and publishing it out, you could create a much greater cost than the cost of the tool, which is lost revenue, lost brand reputation, right? So in my mind, the cost really comes down, or the not even cost, the financial impact comes down to quality of the solution, how well it's doing, and does it enable you to do more? If you're thinking about custom builds, custom projects, very expensive, right? Like say, we do have our own model that we train and use alongside customer models, or sorry, alongside partner models. And there are reasons why it makes sense for us to do that. it's a big, expensive effort that I would not advise, pretty much any small business to undertake unless it's part of your core product that you're selling and offering. The solutions that are evolving in the market are cheap enough, getting better every day. Like just most likely just start there.
Yeah, and I think one other practical tip I would give here is as you're thinking about implementation of AI, first and foremost, go back and look at the core tech stack you already have, because what we're seeing is most large technology providers embracing AI and adding AI components to their existing offerings. So, for example, we're big fans of HubSpot. We use it for our CRM. HubSpot has some native AI capabilities that we're now bringing into for our CRM and for our sales and marketing teams. We're also users of Intercom for our chat interface for our customers and customer tickets. There's capabilities there. We are users of Jira. So Jira as the system of record for our support tickets and for our engineering tickets. There's some AI features and functionality there. Webgility, if you're a user, you can actually add the assistance available out of the box. So the cost of using some of these solutions can be minimal. What typically we've seen is, to Danny's point, it's in the $10, $20, $30 per user type of pricing range. And that's the beauty of where where we are today is the large companies are really doing a heavy capital investment, putting these solutions out there for small businesses to use at fairly low cost. But the technology costs behind the scenes are also continuing to go down. So I expect more and more capabilities will become available. And I just did a time check. I need to move faster. But yeah, I mean, as we talk about AI, and we've been spending a lot of time on different fields, maybe let's dive into specific areas of business, right? So as you look at your business as an e-commerce seller, what are some of the tools? What do they do? What can we put to work today? And I think we've spent quite a bit of time on marketing. Just maybe a quick summary here, Danny, might be helpful as you think about Tailwind and some of the other tools that are talked about here. What a big picture, what are the places where marketing, technology has evolved and AI can really, these business owners can put to work?
Yeah, I think, content we've talked about, content generation is one big area. The other interesting one I do think is around ad optimization. So, we have some capabilities there on helping people allocate their budgets, but there are other providers in the market as well that are looking at the problem of how do you take in real-time data from the various ad marketplaces and then help people to make better decisions on budget allocation and how campaigns are structured. I think that's another big area of opportunity for e-commerce, but those are the two big ones in marketing that jump out to me right now.
That's right. Anything else jump out at you, Anne, from a
Yeah,
marketing standpoint?
So many opportunities here. You can use AI to interlink your content and create better flows of link equity and people from page to page. You can use things like rival flow. They analyze your current competitors, organic search competitors, and give you ready-made opportunities like a checklist. Optimize this page. This is how you optimize it to rank it better. So there are keyword research and search intent optimization tools that just give you, hey, you're not doing a good job compared to your competitors, organic competitors, satisfying search intent, and that's why you're not. That's what you need to add. So there's so many applications here, and most of those tools have free trials, so it's great. It's a great idea. Make it a habit every week to try something new and see if there's something that is adding value to your current operations or saving time for your current teams doing these things. So absolutely a lot of areas of opportunity here.
Yeah, and hopefully our audience isn't having app fatigue, but there's definitely lots of great solutions out there. None of these are forever per se. You can certainly try a few of them, experiment. Again, as we go back to our original concept, you really want to think about what is the problem to solve? Where do you get started? Where's the opportunity? Time box it, put a budget on it, assign an owner, agree on what the deadline is that you're going to experiment and extract value and really put it to work. And really, tons of tools out there and only growing because for those of you that may or may not know, almost all VC dollars right now, all venture capital is right now being funneled to these sorts of AI companies and lots of great startups that are doing a lot of experimentation and innovation to help. So really cool tools available in marketing. An area that's obviously near and dear to my heart is the operations. And so we talked briefly about, Shopify, but there's tons of different tools out there that can help you in terms of optimizing your fulfillment costs. We've talked about customer service, and Gorgeous is a support system that you can use to actually interact with your audience. They've got some AI tooling built in. A critical piece I want to talk about with regards to operations is recognize that, um, as a business owner, especially in e-commerce, um, your own data is your gold mine. And so I'd be very thoughtful about building out your content database. When you think about AI, it's not just about it learning from data that's publicly available, but the most value it can abstract is from your own internal data. So customer interactions that you've had, history of tickets that you've had, those are the things like help documents around how to, some part of your operations, your FAQs, really getting all of that content really well organized and into one system, and then leveraging that to drive your operational agents is incredibly powerful. Shopify, like I mentioned, has also got some tools around order management. So you can use the Shopify Sidekick to ask it questions. Where's this particular order? I know shipping apps out there are also providing AI solutions to help you optimize and kind of figure out where the best fulfillment costs or the lowest costs might be. Really, a lot of cool tools out there from an operations standpoint. And last but not least, there's the world of finance and analytics. This is not a podcast or a webinar to be talking just about Webgility, but certainly world of finance is where we dabble. And there's tons of great opportunity here and lots of good tools. So definitely encourage you to check out Webgility's AI assistant. Intuit and QuickBooks has its own assistant that can help answer questions based on what's in your QuickBooks. I want to take the last few minutes and maybe talk a little bit about our predictions. So I'll get started here, and then we'll turn the mic over to the rest of the audience. One of my big predictions, guys, is really how we're going to see software interfaces evolve from these really heavy, clunky dashboards and lots of search and filters to business owners, consumers getting very comfortable having conversations with an AI assistant. This is not just the future, it's already here. It's going to become even more ubiquitous. There was a time we didn't think that we would be giving Alexa instructions, but here we are. We all give Alexa instructions and have conversations. And with AI, we're going to be able to have those conversations very deeply. And so interfaces are going to evolve to those assistants. And more importantly, my second prediction is that we're going to start to see software applications become more prescriptive. They're going to be more predictive. They're going to tell us what the future is. That's what Webgility is building. And Danny, we're almost at time here, but would love to get your final thoughts on where you think AI is going.
Yeah, I completely agree with those predictions. Yeah, I think to the point of some interfaces will disappear altogether, right? When you think about easier interfaces and greater predictive capabilities, it will get to the point where we simply trust these systems to do certain things for us. And now we no longer need to interface on some of these tasks that we may have very complicated interfaces today. And to me, that is fascinating. One I'll throw out there that maybe is a bit more meta in the grand scheme of things, but I think AI has really interesting potential possibility for the pace of human learning, period. And in a couple of different ways. I mean, one is the sheer processing power and the ability to work through data and help us and our businesses just learn and grow and make sense of things faster. But the other thing is being able to retain information. If you think about it across in a business, across one team member leaves, next team member joins, right? How do you lose less information and less intellectual property as you're going through those transitions, right? If you extend it to a lifetime, right? Like we have to, as humans, educate each next generation. Well, what happens when we have AIs that have existed for generations and have retained all knowledge and information across generations, right? So I'm kind of fascinated.
Yeah, it's crazy. We've been talking a
Generally
lot
see
about
there.
commerce, but yeah, to your point, education, certainly all of the amazing innovations that are going to come in healthcare. Can't
Yeah.
wait to see all the power. And any final thoughts from you in terms of where you see AI going?
Oh, absolutely. So I already said that the behaviors, the searching, discoverability, findability will be changing. But our biggest goal of hope as an SEO industry is that there will be more diversity of channels of search and discovery, information discovery channels out there. So it's not just 90% of Google, and it can do whatever it wants with small businesses, and there are no alternative to that traffic and that findability channel. But with this huge wall of different AI solutions giving people what they are asking about, I hope, and we will see that it will not happen next year. Maybe we'll have like 5 years before Google is shaken as in its dominance, but there will be more channels, more alternative channels for brands, for small businesses, for products to be found by customers.
Awesome. Awesome. Guys, love the conversation. For all those listening, we did not practice this. So this is all fluid. These are folks that are very familiar with AI, and I hope everybody in the audience was able to get some great practical tips of how to put AI to work for your business. It's an evolving field, lots going to change, but have no fear, jump right in, figure out a way to get started. The technology's here and it can really benefit your business. Danny, and really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for the insights, and thank for the audience for your participation, your questions. We see some coming in on the Q&A panel. We'll be sure to answer all of them offline. And thanks again. Have a wonderful day, everyone.